The ways to win a championship in the NFL has evolved tremendously over the past few years, and star players are being traded more and more often than ever before. We saw that especially this past offseason with Davante Adams becoming a Raider, Russell Wilson becoming a Bronco, Tyreek Hill becoming a Dolphin, and the list goes on. But over the past few years, there were several big-name players that were traded, and in today's video, we are going to be grading those trades with the results from each team's side. Some, like the Stefon Diggs trade, turned out nice for both teams, and, well, as you'll see, others simply did not. And we're going to dive into several trades, so without further ado, let's begin. And the first trade we will review is the trade the defending Super Bowl champion Rams made to acquire corner Jalen Ramsey, and you had to know when you clicked to watch this video, which I appreciate that you did, that at some point the Rams would one way or another be discussed, so I thought, why not, let's go ahead and bring them up first. And when you look at the Rams and how they've assembled their roster and how they've had a careless attitude towards first round picks, well, the Super Bowl victory this year justifies that, and I don't think they win this past year without Ramsey's cumulative contributions in 2021. Yes, I understand the T. Higgins touchdown in the Super Bowl, but over his Rams career, Ramsey has 2 first-team All-Pros and has been everything they've hoped for when trading 2 first-round picks. And for the Rams side, it's pretty easy. We give it an A+. Now, for the Jags side, and for those that may not remember the exact details of this trade, was Jalen Ramsey for 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick, and the initial reaction is, wow, they received 2 firsts, and of course that's a huge deal at the time, but remember, you have to hit on these picks. And the Rams have said for the past nearly decade now, because it started back in 2016, as Jared Goff was their last first-round pick, you know, instead of hitting on probably at best 50% of our first-round picks, why don't we just trade for proven talent and have virtually a 100% hit rate, and this trade perfectly shows that. The Jags drafted edge Kayvon Chaisson from LSU, who at this point is a draft bust, and Travis Etienne, who missed his entire rookie season. And even if Etienne thrives in Jacksonville, can you justify using that selection on Travis when you had a Hall of Fame caliber player in Jalen? I don't think you can personally, and obviously I hope Travis plays well, but to suggest he can be as dominant at his position as Jalen is his when he's a running back and that position is already heavily discounted because of the limited shelf time running backs have in the NFL, it's ridiculous to suggest he can be that type of player before he's played a down of NFL football. And the 4th round selection, by the way, was used on edge Jordan Smith, who was inactive in every game of his rookie season but the last 2. And this trade is essentially dependent upon ETN because we expect Jacksonville to draft Aiden Hutchinson number 1 overall, and they already have Josh Allen on the roster, so how much can Jordan Smith contribute moving forward? And that also does not factor in that they also have Kayvon Chaisson as well. So unless ETN becomes a great player, and he can, don't get me wrong, this right now for Jacksonville is a rare F-. And the next trade we will discuss is one that heavily impacts the 2022 NFL Draft, and it is the Jets and Seahawks trade, which sent safety Jamal Adams across the country to play in the NFC West. And the trade details were Jamal and a 2022 4th from the Jets for safety Bradley McDougald, a 1st and 3rd 2021, and a 2022 1st, which as we know is 10th overall in the draft, that will take place in a couple of weeks. For the Jets, they had a star safety who in his first 3 years was on a great career trajectory, as during his time in the Big Apple with the Jets, he had 2 Pro Bowls in 3 years and 2 All-Pros, with the most recent of them at the time being a first-team All-Pro in 2019. And I brought up Pro Bowls in Jamal's case because it's difficult for a young safety to make the Pro Bowl, and they usually have to have a prerequisite year of success before they truly get the nod to the said Pro Bowl. But for Jamal, he was drafted at 6th overall back in 2017, and believe it or not, this was viewed at the time as a steal for the Jets because of how dominant he was at LSU. And over the past 10 years, the Jets have been memed and clowned for everything, like the butt fumble, which will turn 10 years old this November, Sam Darnold, Adam Gase, and everything else. But you cannot credit them enough for trading Jamal at the right time. Like, they could not have picked a better time to trade him, and fortunately for the Jets, and I mean this from a business standpoint, but Russell Wilson got hurt in 2021, which only improved their first-round selection status from this trade. Also, for clarity, to make sure you guys know, I wasn't rooting for that or anything as much as bringing up that part of the business for the Jets. But the Jets get an A+ because they used the first-round pick last year on Elijah Vera Tucker, who will be a Pro Bowl guard at some point in his career, and more than likely will use pick 10 this year to help out Zach Wilson. The third-round pick from the trade that was previously mentioned was used to trade up from pick 23 to pick 14 to acquire Vera Tucker, if you were wondering where that part of the selection was. For Seattle, this has been a meme of a trade and has been a general stain on the franchise and kind of kickstarted the rebuild or whatever the hell you want to call they're in now. 2 years later, this is very one-sided, and Seattle gets, I don't want to say an F, because Jamal isn't woeful or horrible because he was a second-team All-Pro player in 2020 for Seattle, but he's certainly not worth what they gave up, and that has a lot to do with positional value, and the Seahawks should have recognized that when they made the trade. And because of that, we give this a D. And next we'll discuss the Laramie Tunsil to the Texans trade, and obviously this doesn't look good from the Texans side now because of where they are as a franchise, but when we look back at this, I loved the trade for them at the time because of the time it took place. Andrew Luck retired in August of 2019, Ryan Tannehill was practically a journeyman quarterback, and Derrick Henry was not the player he is now. Deshaun Watson wasn't the person he is viewed now, and it honestly looked like the division was theirs to lose when they made this trade, and not just for the 2019 season either, but for like the next 4 to 5 years. Shit obviously hit the fan, and no one thought the Titans would go to the AFC Championship game later that year. The Texans would severely implode and then proceed to have back-to-back third overall picks in 2021 and 2022, and I wanted to get that background out of the way before discussing this. But the Dolphins received the 2020 and 2021 first-round picks and a 2021 second-round pick from Houston, and the 2020 was originally traded to Green Bay for Jordan Love when the Dolphins traded back to number 30 overall to get corner Noah Igbenogany. Now, Noah has been a disappointment so far, and you really can't deny that. He's at most a special teams contributor, and that's not what you're looking for at number 30 overall. But the Dolphins used the pick the next year much to their benefit, as they received 3 number 1s from San Francisco, and eventually traded back up to get who they selected, and it was eventually Jalen Waddle from the first round pick and Javon Holland from the second round pick, both players I absolutely love. And eventually they used the pick from the San Francisco trade as part of the Tyreek Hill trade. So for Miami, yes, they gave up a left tackle, and a good one at that, but this is an easy A+ for them. Now, for Houston, I will always say I loved the thought process of this trade, and hindsight is 2020, and the results, let's call it what it is, suck, but Bill O'Brien eventually traded DeAndre Hopkins for just a second-round pick, and since then it's been bad thing after bad thing, and they themselves missed out on either drafting Trey Lance or receiving an extra 3 first-round picks from trading back, and then would have received another 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson. So truly an unfortunate turn of circumstances for them, but Laramie has been solid for the Texans. Has he been worth 2 first-round picks by themselves? No, but the worst part for Houston is everything that ensued and how much the Dolphins benefited from things that were simply out of the Texans' control, like Bob making a dumb decision and everything else. I give the Texans trade for Tunsil a C- because he hasn't been bad as much as the franchise itself has been a complete train wreck. Now, for the trade that took place in March of 2020 when the Minnesota Vikings sent Stefon Diggs to Buffalo, and from Buffalo's side they sent the 22nd overall pick, along with a 5th and 6th and a 4th in 2021, while the Vikings gave up Stefon, of course, and a 7th round pick. So for Buffalo, the trade paid immediate dividends, and the main piece was a first-round pick, and yes, the later round picks play into it, but they needed a receiver, and were looking to take the next step as a franchise after losing in the wildcard round of the 2019 playoffs. And they were more than likely not going to get a player of what Stefon could do in their rookie season, and Minnesota wouldn't have either had the Eagles not passed on Jefferson. But Buffalo traded a first-round pick for in 2 years, a production from Stefon of 230 receptions for 2,760 yards and 18 touchdowns, and yeah, that's very much worth a first-round pick. And sure, Jefferson has over 3,000 yards, so nearly 300 more than Diggs, but he was a first-round prospect and not this can't-miss top 2 or 3 overall player. He has overperformed in every sense of the imagination, and Stefon has welcomed the Buffalo community as much as they've welcomed him, and it's an easy A+ for the Bills. For Minnesota, along with Jefferson, of course, they received safety Cameron Bynum, who is viewed now as a player with good potential, and he flashed in big ways in 2021. Who knows if he'll become a good player, and for Minnesota, that would only be a cherry on the top for the ice cream sundae that has been Justin Jefferson in this trade. You can't ask for more than what Justin has done in 2 years, which is only have the most receiving yards of any player in NFL history over their first 2 years. They also drafted Janarius Robinson, a defensive end who could develop into a rotational rusher and probably at most get 4 to 6 sacks per year, which would be great from a later round developmental pick, along with Kenny Willekes from Michigan State. A rare A+ from both sides. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because it would truly mean the world. And until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.